Hi, this is Bill Stark with LeaderGov. Today's lesson is on productive meetings, and it's part of the Communicate with Clarity Essential. You know, we all spend a lot of time in meetings, but most of us really don't like them. Well, why is that? Well, maybe it's because many of our meetings are boring, they lack progress, decisions are rarely made. Maybe you're not even needed in the meeting. Why are you there? Sometimes they last too long. Many of them don't seem like they have a purpose. And since they drone on forever, it seems like sometimes they never end on time. Well, today we want to introduce you to a few concepts and principles around having effective meetings. Today we're going to cover 2 out of 3 of these principles. Principle number 1 is the need to have regular meetings that fully engage, repeat, fully engage the group. So that include collaboration, relationship building, brainstorming, decision-making, or problem-solving. Principle number 2 is to encourage healthy meeting debate. You want to have meetings that are filled with debate, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Principle number 3 is to use meeting agendas and best practices, and we're going to cover those issues in a separate lesson coming up soon. So regarding principle number 1, this idea of having regular meetings, look, nobody wants to meet just to meet. We want to meet for a stated purpose. And ideally, that can only be attained by being together around a table. Meeting every week or 2 with your team for about an hour can be a terrific way to advance the success of your department. I know that some of you may be saying right about now, wait, a week? An hour every week? Are you kidding? You know, we know you're busy, but spending just 1 hour per week as a team, collaborating, debating, improving, communicating, critical goals, all those things are essential to building great teams. Plus, they help you build trust on your team when you're together collaborating. Think of it this way, 1 hour of a 40-hour week is only 2.5% of your time. So let's have a positive view of this because so much good can come from the right kind of meetings. Now, having a weekly meeting to go over projects can certainly be a downer. You know, if you want to have a weekly project update meeting, then we recommend you send out the department or project updates ahead of time and then leverage the meeting time to address specific roadblocks to projects, brainstorm better ways to do projects, learn something together, collaborate, improve project outcomes, but not just go over project updates. Here's kind of the rule. Do things in a group setting that you can't do in email, and do things in an email that you don't want to do in a group setting. It's expensive to have a dozen leaders or an entire team around a table for an hour, so make sure the time is spent wisely when you bring your people together. So in summary, here are some ways to leverage time together with your team for the biggest bang. Use the meeting time to clear roadblocks for goals. Engage in creative idea sharing. Use the time to collaborate around service improvements. Maybe you recognize great team or individual performance. Or use the time maybe to learn together. Perhaps you're reading a leadership book and have the team come prepared to share a section for discussion. That's a great way to learn and grow together. Use meeting time to introduce new ideas and initiatives that need a proper launch. Those are all ways that you can make meetings really productive. Now let's shift to principle number 2, which is fostering healthy meeting debate. To explore more about conflict in general, you may want to go back and review the conflict balance point lesson in your learning library if you want to go back and look at that information again. If you want to have less boring meetings, introduce and foster healthy conflict. You need conflict and debate of ideas during meetings. It makes the project or service you're discussing stronger and more resilient when others can weigh in with new and fresh perspectives. But as a leader, ensure your teams keep the conflict and debate on the idea and not on each other, not on people. Healthy debate is what we want. To have healthy debate, ensure that everyone gets to share, not just the vocal few on your team. Ask team members why they believe that what they said makes sense, and encourage them to question each other's ideas. You may have to model healthy conflict by sharing your own reservations about an idea in order for real opinions and perspectives to emerge. Ideas that are debated get better as you hammer out a lot of different perspectives. To encourage more healthy debate, you may need to ask some questions. Like, for instance, what's wrong with this idea? What's right about it? What's missing? What do you like or not like about what John or Susie is saying, and why? Some other questions you can ask to kind of stir debate and discussion are, do we even need to do this project at all? Who's going to benefit most by it? Who will this project hurt, or who's going to be harmed by it in some way? Who else needs to give input? How do we communicate this? What's the worst part of this idea? And what's the single thing that makes this idea worth doing? Those kind of questions will stir debate and stir emotion, and that's what you want. These types of questions can get your team talking and really engaging and sharing healthy disagreement. Now we're going to hear from a local government leader on this important topic of having productive meetings.
Well, there are a couple of tricks, as you can imagine, and I'm going to try to stay at a high level in talking about them. It's really important to have an agenda for your meeting. It's really important that people come prepared to address your agenda, so that you don't just give the agenda out at the meeting, you give it out before the meeting so that people come prepared to talk about the issues at your meeting. That's one thing. The other is to really have time limits so that your meetings aren't endless. For me, my meetings almost have time limits because I have another meeting after. So they don't have the luxury of going on as long as I sometimes even want them to. But having a time limit is really important. In terms of engaging staff, there are some days that I'm better than others at that. I think you need to, first of all, develop a relationship with all of your players at every level so that when people come to the meeting, they're already comfortable and they're feeling like there's a camaraderie. When I'm really on, I try to be witty, if I could be, at the beginning, and maybe even start with something personal that I know about, or events of the day to fill my team in on something that I know about that I know that they don't know about, but they will know about it later because it's a big thing that's happening, like a curfew, and I could tell them in advance and they can feel like they're an insider. So that's important. But I've learned a couple of tricks, even very recently. I went to a wonderful ICMA program. ICMA is an organization for city managers, or city and county managers. And I had the opportunity about a year ago in March to go to a program that I would not have normally gone to. And it was called Gettysburg. And it's in Gettysburg. And it's actually using the war for lessons. And the reason I say that I would normally not have gone is because I'm not a person interested in war. And so that wouldn't have been something I sought out. But I was in between gigs. It was just before, actually, I didn't realize that I would already be in Carson. I just started in Carson, but I had gotten into it because the ICMA does wonderful things for city managers in between jobs, and they provide opportunities where they waive registration. And I just happened to look to see what I could get into, and I got into this Gettysburg program, which turns out, everybody who's listening, I want to do a little pitch, phenomenal, unbelievable, for even somebody not interested in war, understanding the techniques. So one of the things I learned that I now use all the time, and it's a secret, it's really something that serves me well, but I learned it from this Gettysburg program. And it's when you want to find out what's really going on, and you have a room full of people with different ranks in the military, but in your city, people from different levels of government. The secret is you start by asking the lower ranking people in the room their opinions about things, because If you get to them last, they won't give you their honest opinion. They will mirror what their superior said. So if you start with the lower ranking, the people that in your organization maybe are not the top people, you'll get a little bit more honest information about what's going on. It's really being inclusive. And, that was something that was a big lesson at Gettysburg, but it's a lesson for anybody that you really want to make sure that people are participating. And actually, I make a point of telling people that if they're not going to participate in a meeting, if they're subbing, for example, for somebody else, that if they're not going to participate, unless I'm using the meeting as a training, and sometimes I do that. Sometimes I want people just there to hear what's going on and to be part of the inner circle. But if that's not the goal, if your goal is to really make sure you're getting the information you need from those people in the meeting, if people aren't contributing, I don't invite them back to my meeting.
We always want to encourage you to take the next steps to implement the ideas we share each week. If you are a leader, consider this. Survey your team and ask them, do we spend too much time or too little time in meetings in the following ways? Do we spend too much time collaborating or not enough? Do we spend too much time talking about roadblocks or not enough? Do we spend too much time hearing weekly updates or not enough time? Do we spend enough time brainstorming or not enough time brainstorming? Do we spend enough time learning and developing our skills or not enough time? Just survey your team and ask them. Ask yourself if your weekly meetings are really needed, or if you can just send an email update instead of keeping the team informed in person. Remember to dedicate team meeting time to collaboration, brainstorming, learning, recognition, or introduction of new major initiatives. For your team members, ask them what they'd like to discuss at meetings. Share the healthy conflict part of this lesson with your team and ask them to make a commitment to grow in their willingness to have healthy conflict. Those are some things you can do with your team. We hope you enjoy this lesson. And if you need help with your team meetings, feel free to give us a call. At LeaderGov, we focus on helping local governments with off-site retreats, strategic planning, and team and individual professional development. And we'd be happy to help you if you have needs in any of these areas. If you're on Facebook or LinkedIn, be sure to like us, because we often put content out there for people in local government. Until next week, have a great day.